Hey, let's try and get this over with. Not because I dislike this album, it's actually really good, minor spoiler alert, but because the moment I finish recording this, I am immediately leaving for work. So, no time to fucking spare today. Let's jump right into it. Blood in the Water is the 14th studio album from American thrash metal crew Flotsam and Jetsam. Since 1986, they've operated primarily within the underground of the genre. I think it's safe to say that most people still to this day would mostly know Flotsam and Jetsam for briefly having a member of Metallica within their ranks. Which is a genuine shame because they've got some pretty decent cuts all across their discography. Their sophomore album, No Place to Disgrace in particular, I would argue is kind of a gem of like the late 1980s thrash metal scene. And perhaps even one of the last truly great old school thrash metal albums in a pre-Black Album universe. But surprisingly, it's actually their last studio album, the most recent one preceding this one, The End of Chaos, that I would genuinely consider to be their best. It's got some of their strongest melodies, some of their strongest riffs, some of their best guitar solos, and some of the best production of their entire career. And for these reasons, I've actually been pretty excited for Blood in the Water, and while I will immediately concede that The End of Chaos is probably a more powerful and consistent album from start to finish, this doesn't necessarily disappoint either. It's still chock full of everything that made The End of Chaos so great. The production on this is fantastic. It's very clear. The guitars are very crunchy. The drums have a nice earthy punch to them. The vocals are really strong. It reminds me of some of the modern thrash production I would expect from like Testament, Anthrax, and to some extent Queensryche as well, considering those super strong anthemic choruses and considering that kind of subtle, dark power metal spice rubbed into everything. The album's title track starts this off on a particularly thunderous and bloodthirsty note with some really fast, razor-sharp riffing and some really brutal percussion. It's just such a dark, oppressive, and violent little number. Should the gates to hell open anytime soon, I would not be shocked to hear this bursting out of Satan's speakers. Tracks like Burn the Sky and Brace for Impact do a really great job at keeping the momentum going, the former of which reminding me of some of the best songwriting from the last few Testament albums, whereas the latter has a little bit more of an old school thrash metal bounce and groove to it. Both tracks also further contributing to the very hellish and apocalyptic kind of atmosphere and vibe that this album is constantly permeating. It's as if Flotsam and Jetsam are themselves preparing for the apocalypse across these numbers. And following all of this, you've got A Place to Die, which stands as perhaps one of the best tracks on the record, or at the very least one of the catchiest tracks on the record, despite how bitter and sadistic its lyrics and themes are. Like, Eric's vocals across this entire album are just really fucking fantastic, but on here in particular, he really sells the lyrics and the chorus and just makes this sound as painful and agonizing as possible without making it any less memorable, without making this song any less entertaining. Another favorite track of mine would probably be Cry for the Dead, a very lush, evocative, and dramatic number that at times resembles some of the darkest material from like mid-80s Iron Maiden. I do think that after this cup, the album does begin to lose a little bit of its steam, a little bit of its edge, a little bit of its momentum, but there are still some bright spots. There is a tongue-in-cheek bluntless to Too Many Lives that I find genuinely kind of entertaining. I like how all throughout the track, Flotsam and Jetsam are basically just kind of going, hey, there are a lot of problems in the world. You know how we can solve every single one of them? Just fucking kill everyone. And of course, there's also the album's scorching closing number, 7 Seconds Till the End of the World, which ends the album on a note almost as bloodthirsty as the album's title track opens it on. Although I will say, a bit of a missed opportunity not actually making this cut 7 seconds long. I know it would probably be kind of cheap and silly, but at the same time I also feel like it would really just kind of emphasize like the apocalyptic vibe and theme of this entire album. But overall, I'd give this album a 3.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed this album. There are some filler cuts in between all of the standout tracks we mentioned, but they're still mostly entertaining thanks to some fantastic guitar riffs, some really scorching, orgasmic guitar solos, and of course, Eric's absolutely fantastic vocal delivery across all of these numbers. Put very simply, Blood in the Water, even at its absolute worst, is still a very well produced, well written, well performed, and a well executed slice of modern meets old school thrash metal. There's no doubt in my mind that old school fans of Flotsam and Jetsam will still get a kick out of this despite its modern leanings in production. And on that note, anyone who's been enjoying the more modern thrash of Testament, of Anthrax, and a few others should get a kick out of this as well. If I really wanted to nitpick, I could sit here and tell you that the album is kind of derivative, kind of formulaic, kind of predictable, and objectively that would be true. It's not like there are a lot of grand surprises on this album in comparison, I would say, to The End of Chaos, but I don't really think that Flotsam and Jetsam are trying to really surprise you. I think they're just trying to make another really damn good album, and that's exactly what they did. Plus, this is still miles ahead of the modern output we see from actually formulaic and repetitive thrash bands like Overkill, like Anvil, like Destruction, like Tankard, and many fucking more. So fuck it, I'll settle for Blood in the Water. Maybe it is meat and potatoes thrash metal, but you know what? It's well seasoned and cooked to near perfection by the standards of this genre. So 3.5 out of 5, a damn good album. Definitely give it a shot. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be. So what do you think? Do you like this album? Do you not like this album? What do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.